Howdy, and welcome to the Fabulous Texas Baseball Podcast. We're excited to begin our journey into the baseball media world. My name is Kel Bordwine. I run the page called Texas College Baseball on Twitter. Back in my amateur days, I pitched at Cypress Ranch and graduated in 2017. Following my time at Ranch, I went right down the road to Rice University. I was a pitcher from 2017 to 2021, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Swick, who I was originally going to room with at Blinn College. Take it from here, Matt.
Hey everybody, Matt Swick, like he said. Unlike Kel, I was a JUCO bandit and also a pitcher. And I run the Texas Pro Baseball account on Twitter at Texas Pro BSB on Twitter. We both have a passion for baseball and Texas, so we just combined the two and it felt right. Started this podcast.
Thanks, Matt. Today we're joined by a special guest, Wade Townsend. Wade is a former Rice University superstar and member of the 2003 National Championship team. Following his time at Rice, Wade went on to be the number 8 overall draft pick in the first round of MLB in back-to-back seasons. Following his baseball career, he had an amazing poker career that I cannot wait to dive into. Without further ado, we want to welcome the most interesting man in Texas, Wade Townsend. Thanks for coming on. We're excited to share the floor with you.
Well, awesome, guys. First off, I want to say I think this is a great idea what we all are doing. Just in general in life, whenever you're doing something that you're actually interested in, the product ends up being a really good product. And a lot of people are out making podcasts just to make a podcast, right? You'll actually have something you want to talk about. And other people, you'll find out no matter what it is in life you're interested in, a lot of other people are interested in as well. So I'm sure y'all are going to grow and get bigger and get better at what you're doing. It's an honor to be the first guest you have on your podcast. And let's get rolling.
Let's do it. So Wade and I have a lot in common. Not that I share the same baseball or poker skills yet, but we both do enjoy throwing the ball a little bit and playing our hands. However, both went to Rice. We both got to play under Wade Graham a lot different times. We want to talk about what you did at Rice for a little bit. Explain what times were like at Rice back in the early 2000s when you were tearing up campus, tearing up South Main.
Well, when I came in, Rice was basically just that school that was right at the precipice. We've been to Omaha 3 or 4 times. We've beaten big teams and regionals. We just couldn't make that jump, right? And I came in as a third baseman mostly, but I could throw hard. And Coach Graham, me and him I had the worst freshman fall that I think anybody's ever had. It was very embarrassing, to be honest. I couldn't throw a strike. I was out of sorts, didn't know what I was doing. And me and Coach Graham really, got into each other for a while. And, but through those confrontations, it was him challenging me mostly to, basically accept everything here is my fault, first off. And it's like, okay, well, it is, and then once you accept that, it's like he could tell that I actually cared about what I was doing and I wanted to be good. And he knew I was competitive and athletic. And so all of a sudden we started spending a ton of time together. And I would throw, everybody else would I would throw bullpens 2 or 3 times a week, 60, 70 pitch bullpens where it's just me and him and a catcher and then a bullpen catcher who I couldn't think, there's so many small things that really help to build you. But one thing that helped me surprisingly was the bullpen catcher we had named John Gillespie, right? And here's why he helped me. Because he would be the one having to catch me. And, I'd be bouncing, 93-mile-an-hour fastballs right into his forearms over and over again, And as a pitcher, you don't want to do that. You feel terrible inside. You're just smashing this guy that's just it's a walk-on doing his job, right? You're just crushing him over and over again. And at no point, not a single time did he complain. And every time I'd hit him in the forearm, he would go, "Damn it, John." And he blamed himself, right? And it took so much pressure off of me because at that point, you've got somebody else that's also willing to be like, hey, I think you can be good. It's an honor actually to be here trying to be part of that. And I haven't really talked about that. I don't think many people understand just the effect that kind of mentality has. And from what I can tell, he's moved on to have a fantastically successful life. And there's no reason why. So if you have an attitude like that, of course you're going to be successful.
It's awesome to hear. Lots of credit to the student managers. That's something we're big on too. They're backbones to a lot of the operations that happen in college sports.
We had a fantastic one named Greg Mitchell who was again, same kind of attitude. No matter what, it would just he'll do it. He'll fix it no matter what. And then He's gone on to have an unbelievably successful life as well. But once me and Coach Graham started working with that, one day something just clicked, and mostly what he was doing was teaching me how to focus. Right? Nobody understands pitching really. Like if you would try to explain to somebody how do you throw a strike, most pitching coaches, almost all of them couldn't tell you. The real answer is you have to teach people how to focus, and to teach people how to focus, the first thing you have to do is remove all fear. Because fear it gets in the way of everything. Like I remember one time I was pitching my freshman year, and Coach Graham came out and said, if your next pitch isn't at least 92, I'm pulling you, right? Most pitching coaches be like, well, listen, you need to throw a strike here. It's like, well, no shit, obviously. And everybody knows me to throw a strike. That's not like a big thing to say. He comes out and says, if your next pitch isn't at least 92 miles per hour, I'm pulling you. And the reason he did that was to take me all the fear away from me of needing, maybe I might throw it. All of a sudden, you're not worried about that. You're just worried about throwing the ball hard. Of course, the next pitch is 93 on the black, and I'm just off to the races again. But it takes somebody that understands psychology to really get to people, specifically to get to smart people like myself. If I didn't have respect for you as a smart person, I wouldn't listen to you. But because of all those conversations, me and him, Coach Graham is a genius. He's a very smart, very well-read person who can defend himself in any conversation on any topic. And it's just knowing those little tricks to come out and say, if you don't throw the next pitch as hard as you can as a pitching coach, most pitching coaches would be appalled. They'd be like, what on earth are you what are you talking about? And of course, that was what was needed at the time. And that I learned a giant lesson that day. And I don't think most people really understand that what went into him building all these great pitchers. It wasn't a knowledge of mechanics necessarily. My mechanics weren't perfect. They weren't great. It was a matter of knowing how to get in people's heads and getting pointed in the right direction. And he was a master at that. And they think they can just replicate that. But when you just find a pitching coach, they're all the same, right? Well, that's not how it works. There was a reason he built so many pitchers, because he knew what he was doing. And that's not something you can just learn from a handbook. You have to have done it himself, because he was around baseball for 70 years at this point. Like, even when he was bat boy and Bob Feller's pitching. It's like, well, imagine that breadth of knowledge and wisdom he has. It's like it can't be replaced. And I'm glad I learned. He downloaded a lot of it into my head. Of course, I haven't used any of it, but it was nice. It's nice to know at least.
Having Wayne Graham as a mentor, even his last year at Rice, getting to share that with him was amazing. He was a fearless leader, to say the least. You were a fearless competitor yourself. Even forwards from some of my mentors that played at Rice before, like Jimmy Camarada, who's doing something great with the NIL. He reaches out to me when he heard I was bringing you on. He's just like, Wade's that guy, Wade's that competitor, but it all starts with someone. And Wayne Graham seems to be like that for you. And for me, it was the same thing. I was no big 90s guy, but he'd pull me off the side and tell me to take me behind the barn and do some things we probably shouldn't talk about on here. But it was just something that taught me how to pitch. Going up against these Big 12 schools and even Coosa, respect to Coosa, that it's a great baseball conference. You can't go out there scared. And when you're getting told to just let it eat, let it ride on the mound, it creates a different competitor for yourself, which you definitely carried on the rest of your time at Rice. You got the stature, but like, what did it take to really push you over the edge in terms of doing it in games and doing it for a whole entire season and keeping your body ready? Coach was obviously a part of it, but I know he liked to work guys. And how did you stay ready for all this?
Well, when you're 20 years old, I'm a good natural athlete and I'm big, so it wasn't really a problem, and you can throw all day. That was never an issue. I had issues with command. Like I went to Alaska my freshman year, summer, and like I had a good freshman year at Rice. I had like a 2.2 ERA, kind of under the radar, but not to the people that knew. I go to Alaska and I threw 7 innings and I walked 13. I lost 3 games and I embarrassed myself. Right? I didn't understand. I needed that person. I needed that Coach Graham to be watching me all the time at that point in my life. And then I come back to Rice and I get fixed instantly. And then I start having a ton of command issues my sophomore year. I walked like 9 guys in my first inning and a third. And it was, and again, something else that just shows you how crazy, and on some levels, stupid Wayne Graham is. So my sophomore year, we're at Minute Maid. That Friday, I come in relief, and I'm throwing as hard as you can possibly. I'm 95 to 100, right? Mm-hmm. And I just walk 3 guys, and he comes out and pulls me, and he comes up to me and goes, "With the stuff you had, they should have never touched you," And so most coaches would be like, okay, well, you're going to get back to the bench. You're going to have to work on this. The next day, all right, 1-run game, 9th inning, we're against Baylor with a guy on second base. He puts me in. What are you, out of your mind, you crazy man? And again, but it's just that little vote of confidence that says, listen, no matter what, if you get this done or not, we have to have you to be able to win this year. And so he's basically saying, like, we need you, and I trust you enough to go out there and try to do this. And I get the 2 guys out, and I was off to the races. I don't think I walked a guy for almost 50 innings after that.
Holy shit!
Yeah, it was. I mean, we walked 9, and it just shows you what confidence and lack of fear, when somebody really starts bleeding, then you start snowballing, and then you start, and that's what really happened. But it would take that vote of confidence and that level of understanding that he had to be able to fix it. It wasn't even necessarily, a mechanical issue. It was just, a trust issue. Like, I wasn't trusting myself. And to give me that extra sense, he basically was like, listen, I don't care if you trust yourself. I trust you, I'm putting you back out there. So, all right, you crazy son of a bitch. What are you doing, And it worked out fantastic. And those things are what led us to win the national championship that year. I mean, there's a ton of guys in the team that we couldn't have done without, but we can't win it without me that year. And he built me up even during that year to be able to do it. I mean, all credit goes to him there.
That's awesome. Could we talk about the rest of your rotation too for a second? I mean,
yeah,
of course, can't do it without you, but with the arsenal you guys were running out there too, more premier than what Vanderbilt's running out this year, numbers wise, and you guys were a special group of arms.
I mean, well, the thing with Neimann, the same with me, is we were kind of looked at as an afterthought, and Coach Graham spent a lot of time on him too. And the thing about me and Jeff were best friends back then, and then he kind of adapted. My personality rubbed off on him a lot, as far as being almost to the point of arrogant with confidence. And you look at what he did. He snowballed. He went 17-0, and he should have gone 18-0. They miscounted one win. They gave it to Stephen Hurst in a game where Jeff should have won. But if they would have given it to Jeff, he'd have the all-time record of 18-0, which has never been, broken. But 17-0 kind of speaks for itself,
Holy shit! Even on
and
that
Philip
note,
also. Philip was like the guy that came into Rice that was already good, right? Me and Jeff had massive problems mechanically, emotionally, whatever you want to call it. And Philip was already kind of, not a finished product, but kind of was. I mean, his freshman year, he came in, he did great. I pitched for Team USA that year. And the thing is, he was supposed to be like a number 1. And then me and Jeff come out of kind of nowhere. And most people didn't realize what we were or that we'd be that good. We came in and just became unbelievable that year. And we kind of overshadowed Philip a little bit that year. And then he won the national championship. And then the next year, Philip got even better, actually. Started throwing harder. His stuff got better. And he became the 3rd pick in the draft. Which, I mean, I still think I should have been first, but what are you going to do,
So Philip Umber went 3rd, Jeff Neimann went 4th, you went 8th in 2004.
Yeah,
Travis. Insane.
But we fed off each other is the key.
Yeah.
Even though, not to say nobody rooted against each other, but let's say we're all pitching and Jeff's up 8-0, and then some guy hits a home run off him. I think it's hilarious at that point. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we're not risking losing. I kind of find it funny, and I was rooting for the guy to hit a home run. Not because I wanted to fail, but because, we have a competition going. I want to have the best ERA. I want to have the most strikeouts, obviously. And so when you act that way, it's like when somebody comes out and throws, a 2-hit shutout, guess what? The next day, you got to match that. You just and it keeps going. You keep feeding off each other. And that's one thing Tampa Bay should have done with me and Jeff, is just put us in the same locker room. Because we both made each other better just instantly. But, it's a long story there.
I've heard you talk a lot about that on your own podcast. How you treat minor leaguers, how you make them their best selves. You don't change them from what they're doing to get better. You keep feeding what they do to make someone better. That sounds like what you're talking about with Wayne Graham too. Like, he's not trying to take you out of your environment. He's just trying to feed into your environment by his means of psychology and his ways of going about stuff, and just teach you new things along the way.
Well, what Wayne Graham did, he treated people like human beings. That was the number one thing. He treated like you a human being with your own problems, your own needs. It isn't just a cookie cutter. Well, this is what we do with pitchers. This is what we do with hitters. It's never like that. And so I come from Rice University with in my opinion, one of the smartest coaches that's ever lived. We're traveling around and playing, staying at nice hotels. And then they get to the minor leagues and they treat people like absolute dirt. It didn't make any sense to me. And like I could deal with it because they gave me enough money to where it's like I can go buy my own food and stay at my own place. But like you're in roach infested motels and they're feeding you the cheapest crap they can buy because they're just counting dollars and cents. And they wonder why people get hurt, you know? And not only that, like spring training is my number one pet peeve. Most people don't even realize baseball players aren't paid during spring training, right? You're there for a month and a half every day. You get no money for it. Like, and I saw so many people be there for that whole 6 weeks, working 8-10 hours a day, getting paid nothing, and then getting released at the end of it. So basically, they just stole their labor for 6 months. Whether it be a bullpen catcher, they just didn't want to pay, so they just bring a guy in for spring training and then release him because they can get away with it. It's stuff like that that just really irks me. It didn't have to be that way. I mean, we can go into long conversations about why the minor league shouldn't even exist. But it was just a complete 180 from what I saw at Rice, where it was a challenge. Coach Graham challenged you to be the best you could be, to be responsible for yourself. And then you get to the minor leagues, you wake up at 6, they're like, be at the field by 7 a.m. It's like, man, I need to be sleeping. You know, we play baseball at 7 p.m. What are we doing waking up at 6 a.m. to go play baseball? This is how you get hurt. You wonder why people get hurt in the minor leagues so much. Well, that's why. It's like you never play games at 6 in the morning. Why are we there at 6 in the morning playing baseball? This is absurd.
Do you think that goes for college and like morning lifts as well?
Yeah, it's insane. It's idiocy. It makes no sense.
How about Rice having the course load you have to take? That's a premier school. We both went through it. I mean, we're waking up at 6 a.m. to lift. You got class 8 to 2, and then you practice from 2:37. Back to do the life. You love it.
But I would have never showed up to lifting ever, but I'm skipping it. I don't care. I even came to a teacher one time, my junior year, an accounting teacher. I had an 8 a.m. class. And I explained to her, I was like, listen, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I want to talk to you. It's like, I'm preparing myself to be a professional baseball player. I'm also finishing my degree. I have to take this class, but I can't come to your class ever. It's too early in the morning. I have to sleep. And she was actually cool. She was like, that's fine. Just come in at lunch. I think she had a crush on me, whatever. But she said, come in, at lunch, drop your homework off. I'll let you know what you need to know. It's like, no problem. That was really cool of her. But like, I have to be honest. Like, listen, if you go through the actual science of it, sleep is the actual most important thing for an athlete. There's nothing more important. It's more important than nutrition is even. I mean, getting sleep is when your body heals. So if you don't sleep, what you do, all those micro tears you put in your body, you put in your arm, your rest of your body, if you don't sleep, they don't heal for the next day. And then the tear gets bigger. It's stuff like that. Like, there's no reason to wake up at 6 a.m. to lift. Now, if you're a golfer, yeah, it makes a ton of sense because you're golfing at 6 in the morning sometimes, but you're never playing baseball at 6 in the morning. And you wonder why the Cubs sucked for 100 years. They're the only idiots playing day games every time. It's like, well, no shit. It's like your circadian rhythm is just totally wrecked. You wonder why the Cubs always get tired in August, because half the time you're waking up at 9 a.m., then half the time you're playing at 7 p.m. on the road. And so you're just totally wrecked by the rest of the season. And it's small things like this people haven't thought of. They can't believe, that sleep is that important, because there's this weird fantasy that we have in America and in the West in general, ever since, I don't know, basically ever, that sleep is somehow a weakness. Oh, you don't need to sleep. You'll sleep when you die. It's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Getting the right amount of sleep, which is basically what your body tells you to get. Getting that amount is the most important thing as an athlete. That's the most important thing. If you have 6 a.m. workouts, your coach needs to really rethink that. It's better to have 10 p.m. workouts than would be have 6 a.m. workouts.
Don't forget to mention you were the academic All-American too. You're not just making any of this. You're not pulling this out of your ass. This is for real. I mean,
yeah.
You're not coming off nothing.
You have all these courses, at Rice. Like your first part of your day needs to be basically dedicated to focusing on school. Like no joke, I mean, you can't wake, because if you wake up at 6 a.m. to lift and then you go to class, you're not going to remember anything you're not going to remember anything you heard in class. You're just going to be sitting there with your eyes just droopy, wanting to go to sleep. It's going to hurt your performance in both athletics and academics. It's crazy that they would do it, but here's the problem: you have people, strength coaches, that think that come from this football mindset. We're going to punish ourselves, and that's going to make us better. Punishing yourself has never made you better. It's like people flogging themselves to cleanse their sins. It's super odd to me. Like, I don't see what the point is of hurting yourself when it's not actually helping yourself, because they want to prove to other people that they're trying hard. And that's the real problem. Most people want to go out there and look like they're trying hard when they're not actually trying hard.
Well, the 6 a.m. workout's not an issue, right? Because every single college kid goes to bed at 8 p.m. Every young athlete that, has some money, they go to bed at 8 p.m., right?
Nobody
Well, that's
drinks.
the thing. Yeah, in spring training, what they try to do is they try to make it so miserable to where people won't go out and drink at night. But here's the thing. These are still 22-year-old kids that just signed for a bunch of money. Of course they're going to go out and drink. So what ends up happening, you get people coming in at 7 a.m. hungover and hurting themselves. And they think that was like a good idea. I don't blame the kids. Like, I want my athletes personally, I want them to know what they're playing for, which is to be elite, to be standouts. And, to want girls to want you, of course, to go have fun, to be popular over your success. If you're not going to take advantage of that, and go out and enjoy yourself on some occasions, then what's the point of doing it to start with? We was doing this for the hell of it. That seems odd.
Well, back to Wayne Graham for a second, if you can. He won almost 1,200 games at Rice and went to a regional from 95 all the way till 2017 with multiple World Series appearances and one championship. How in the hell does Rice fire him?
I think the problems at Rice at that point you have to look that are so structural. It's like, you have cancer all over your body and then you break your foot. And it's like, well, it's not just the foot that broke. You've got real problems. And I've talked a lot about, I don't think a lot of people realize that Rice University went from being a school that was basically a Texas school. So obviously the president, LeBron, doesn't care about athletics really. He may pretend to care because he's supposed to, but so he hires a guy named Joe Carlagard, who's basically a budget pick, who's really good at making lists. Because here's the problem at Rice. Rice used to be elite because we would win stuff. It'd be great. We'd have Nobel Prize winners. We'd have national champions. We'd have fantastic artists. We'd have people from all different races, backgrounds that were just amazing at random stuff. That's what Rice was known for. We'd all come together and make great stuff and have a fun time doing it. That's what Rice was. Now it's about making those lists. Well, we're one of the top 15 college. We've had this many people want to apply. It's like, well, Rice isn't about applications. It's not about money. It was about excellence. I mean, we've gone away from those principles so drastically that you look at what happened. Like, how could you possibly fire the only person that's ever won, in my opinion, the spiritual leader of Rice University? You just fire him because he's old? Like, are you kidding me? In a day and age where you can't,
discriminate.
There's discriminating on all. That's clearly discriminatory. I mean, it'd be one thing. Like, I would have come out and told people, I'd be like, listen, I think Coach Graham's losing his mind. I would say that if I thought that was the truth. But I talk to the guy regularly. He's smart as hell still. And like what he lacks in physical ability between now and 20 years ago, he's gained 20 more years of experience. He may be the best he's ever been right now. He knows what he's doing. And at the bare minimum, what you do is you find a system where, you keep him involved. You make him the athletic director if you don't want him to coach anymore. But to just get rid of him like he's a piece of trash, they threw him out to like the garbage. No publicity, no real thank you, no nothing. It just shows you Joe Carlagard was hired because his brother is very high up in the advertising department, not department, but like the world. And so he gets Joe Carlagard on these lists, well, here's a list of one to watch before we sport. Well, who gives a shit? What's he ever done? This is just a list his brother made that got him on the Rice's radar, and then he just gets to keep his job because LeBron doesn't care about athletics. If you really cared about athletics, you find someone that knew how to win. And of course, I recommend them myself because if anybody can explain game theory better than I can, then good luck. But I understand how to win. Joe Carlagard never played team sports. You have to play team sports to understand how to win. And he never did. And so he became very arrogant. And he's like, oh, well, Rice baseball, it just won because it's Rice baseball. Not remembering or forgetting that, Rice baseball is Wayne Graham. It doesn't exist really before. I mean, it does, obviously, but winning at Rice baseball did not exist before Wayne Graham. To get rid of him under any circumstances, to me, is disgusting. And even if he had gone senile at that point, it's my belief. It's like, man, you created this, you can destroy it if you want to, But he missed the playoffs one time and gets fired. Since then, Rice has got nowhere close to even 500, and it's in my opinion, they got what they deserve.
We had a stacked team too the year he got fired. It wasn't like the talent was gone. He wasn't losing the recruiting pool. It just was a year that didn't necessarily click. I mean, maybe not the year Rice had a vision. Yeah. And not only that, who is San Jack baseball without Wayne Graham? 5 national championships. They're still great today because they could find someone who won. You know how sad it is being in the locker room when you have this legendary coach that, I mean, I'm a Houston kid myself. I grew up looking up to Rice. I mean, Matt too. We're from the same area. Like looking up to Wayne Graham, like playing for him was an honor. And I just happened to be part of the year where, I mean, I'm blessed to be a part, but where he walks into a locker room one day, we're expecting some great Wayne Graham speech. And then boom, it's Rice isn't going to re-sign me. You're going to have someone new next year at the helm. Almost towards the end of the season, we just weren't doing so well. How does that happen? I mean, I was happy try a new coach. The news is gone. I mean, of course, bad things can happen, but Bragg is a different story. I want to ask you about Jose Cruz Jr. You excited for the hire? I'm far more excited for the way Rice is going, what they're doing now with technology. They're building a pitching lab, that they're out there in the field. They're back to recruiting Texas hard. Rice competed and beat Texas, Texas A&M, TCU, Tech consistently. We need to get back to that. How do you feel about it?
Well, I've known the Cruzes, I've known who they were before I got to Rice, obviously. And then my roommate in Alaska was Enrique Cruz. I played with for 2 years. 2 years. I think of the Cruzes basically because I see people in archetypes and metaphors. Like the entire Cruz family, I picture as like this old Spanish swordsman clan, but like instead of swords now, they have baseball bats, right? There's just something ingrained in their entire family where they understand hitting in baseball up and down on such a level that it's almost an eight. They understand it on such a high level. I picture Jose Cruz Jr. like Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride. Like, he walks up the bat and says, "My name is Jose Cruz Jr. You struck out my father. Prepare to die." It's just like this is kind of how they work. It's a family that understands baseball up and down. And so I've talked to Jose Cruz Jr. Pretty in depth about some topics over the years. I think he's incredibly smart. The thing I didn't know he really wanted to be coach there. I'm glad that he does because it's a fantastic hire. And again, no credit to Carl Guard. If you knew what you were doing, you would have hired him the first time and not Braga and wasted 3 years. And now they're paying Braga and Cruz. Great job as an AD. You want to save money? Try not paying two people at once. There's a good idea.
Budget failed on that one.
Yeah. And so I think it's a fantastic hire. I'm rooting for Rice baseball again now because I wasn't for the last 3 years because, as I said, if you're gonna fire Wayne Graham, I hope you lose. I'm rooting against you. But Jose Cruz Jr. has access to his father, who's a genius. His uncles. I mean, the whole family knows baseball, and he's very smart. Also, to be a good coach at Rice, you have to be very smart. You can't just be a baseball coach. Jose Cruz Jr. is very intelligent. He's very well spoken. He's very well thought out and in depth. I just didn't realize he wanted to be coach. But once I found out that he did, it's like that's the best hire you could have ever made, actually.
I feel the same way. I mean, I'm super pumped. I got to play with his sons, and I got to share some of the knowledge with him. He's up at the field all the time with Antonio and Trey. And when Trey left, Papacheo's around, and I've got to meet his family. It's just like it's a Rice guy. Rice needs a Rice guy. No other way to put it.
I mean, the thing with Rice is here's the conundrum when you're stuck with it, Rice. Even if you win, you have to find a coach that wants to stay and isn't going to take money from somebody else. And Wayne Graham was a rare bird. He could have gone and coached at A&M or somewhere else, but he didn't. He stuck. He stayed at Rice. The problem, even if you like, we've seen this with the women's basketball coach. We've seen this with other basketball coaches, even in some of the football coaches. As soon as they have any success at all, they leave. It's like, well, what was the point of hiring them at that point? Because to win at Rice, you have to build something. It may take a couple of years. And you have to have someone that wants specifically that job. And Jose Cruz Jr. is perfect for that. He left a big league hitting coach job to get that. The big league hitting coach job is like the best job, right? You're not really responsible for that much. And you get to fly around absolutely first class and get paid a ton of money and get to be at the field every day. It's a fantastic job. To leave that job to take this job, it shows you he really wants to be here. And you really need someone that really wants to be here.
His head's in the dirt now. Being a head coach is no joke. You got to do it all. Like you're saying, you leave first class treatment. You're basically a major leaguer again, where he spent 10 plus years. Great success in his career. Carried out a storied legacy from his father. It's also not easy to live up, like you're saying. It's just the man just feels like the right fit. I'm super excited to see what they're going to bring around Westview, and especially now that Berkman's right down the road, it's going to be really exciting to watch baseball in Houston again.
Well, I mean, it needs to be, and even the University of Houston, like we need all these teams to be good because there's enough talent in Texas to win. With like you see these random teams, Sam Houston will be great, and then Dallas Baptist is great now. There's nothing stopping these schools. There's enough talent level because what a lot of people don't understand, a lot of listeners don't realize is a lot of the success you see people have. You'll see a guy that's a major leaguer or that's an All-American. Well, there's a bunch of other guys that just didn't get the opportunity to play anywhere that would have been just as good, that didn't have the right focus or the right opportunity or the right coaching behind them. The talent is here. A lot of talent is overlooked, and that's one thing Wayne Graham didn't do. He saw talent and knew how to get to it. And I think Jose Cruz Jr. will be just as good at that because he's an intellectual. He's a polymath. He's a fantastic hire, and I hope that he succeeds. I mean, I really do. Like I hope also Carl Guard doesn't get in his way, and I hope that Carl Guard obviously gets fired. But Rice Jose Cruz Jr. feels like the first step in Rice restoring its soul, just in general to me. So we'll see what direction it goes. I'm obviously rooting for him.
Let me bring up some quick facts real quick, because I don't think people understand how much this whole shift has taken place in Houston baseball. It's something that I felt like I needed to cover and shine light on. Rice and UH didn't even play this year. Full season, COVID season, 5 miles apart, no travel issues. Don't even want to get into NC State.
I can tell you why that happened. Do you know why that happened?
I feel like I have a good idea. I'm ready to hear it.
Because Braga wanted to keep his job and put together the weakest schedule you could possibly put together to try to pad his record to make it look decent at the end of the season, and it still failed. I mean, he played Houston Baptist 6 times, played an entire series against Southern. It was one of the weakest schedules in the country, and that's why they didn't play.
Not only
Houston
that,
would have been losses.
Not only that, he had to take off the previous contracts they had with other schools to play. I think Michigan was supposed to be on our schedule this year. They signed that right after Michigan made it to the College World Series final. They were off the schedule. Not only that, my junior year was the last year I pitched at Rice. I was battling little arm injuries. I was still low 90s, sinker baller. I ended up starting versus Texas opening weekend. They went 14-3 that year. We played Texas Tech. They had 1 loss. California Irvine, like that's a loaded schedule. Our RPI was right at 100, lower than 100. We were 2-14. We were still at 100. Those guys started over 500, I believe, this year, right at 500 through the first month of the season. I was still part of the team, but I didn't play. I didn't dress out. Story for another time. They were about 180 to 230. They would bounce between there in the RPI, which is just not where Rice has been. When Wayne left, we were still 89th. I had 3 innings. I don't have much to say on me contributing to that. Maybe I contributed to the other side, but it's not how I looked at it. It's just the state where Rice went. And that's just what we're covering here. And another thing I want to bring up too is Rice and UH used to battle to go to Omaha. Like how sick would that be to have that Houston battle back? Or even if it's HBU with Berkman or Schloss or Texas, like getting these schools back in supers, getting all these schools back in regionals. It's so possible with the strength of what we have in this state. I mean, people don't even know that UTRGV has players that hold national records in the NCAA rule book. Like the state's great, and getting back to that is just something. And when you were there, if I'm not mistaken, in 2003, you guys beat Houston to go on to Omaha. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, Houston, and the year before, Houston took Texas to 3 games in a super regional. Houston was a top 10. Yeah. And they almost didn't make the College World Series. Houston almost beat them. Mm-hmm. And we had the same problem. Houston won game 1 versus us, and then Jeff pitched game 2 and I pitched game 3, and I had basically a mastery over Houston that year because I pitched all the midweek games. That's when we played Houston, Texas, and Baylor, and so I actually got by far the hardest role. But I was kind of on a roll, and at that point I had beaten Houston I think 3 times in the year already.
3 times,
and so they were kind of. I'm not, intimidated is the word. Like once you lose that many times to a guy, you're not going to go out there and probably put the fight you should fight. But yeah, like Braga changed because when I first got to Rice, one of the first speeches Coach Graham gave to that 02 team that made it to Omaha was, guys, we must host a super regional. We must do everything possible. We can't ever take 1 game off because we're a smaller conference. We know the NCAA isn't going to give us the respect we deserve. We have to force their hand to make sure we're a top 8 seed. Because the year before in 01, they went to Nebraska in a regional and lost. He said if we would have played that regional year, we would have won. And so everything he did throughout the year was to make sure that we hosted. Now, if you're in the this just shows you when your goal is to win the national championship, your actions match it. We must have the hardest schedule we can possibly have because we need our RPI so high that they can't take this regional away from us. Now, you obviously saw when the last year with Braga, the idea wasn't to try to win a national championship. The idea was try to keep Matt Braga's job. And to me, that's disgraceful. And I'm glad he got fired. I have nothing against him personally. I never met him. But it just shows you his goal was a personal goal of keeping his job. And that can never be the goal if your goal is to win. Your goal has to be to win the actual national championship. There's nothing between that. Now, if you have that goal, your actions will match. And if you look in the season, you don't win it, hey, we tried as hard as we can. Here's how we can get better. But you can never go in like, oh, I hope we make the playoffs. I hope we're over 500, or I hope we make the conference tournament. That's nonsense. Your goal has to be win it all the time.
I agree. Certainly agree. On the topic of talking about coaches, do you have a best Wayne Graham story?
I mean, there's just so many. That one where he came out and said, I have to throw at least, 93. That was interesting. But one of the things people don't realize was he was a gossip hound, Like I'd tell him about like my girlfriend problems, and all of a sudden he's telling somebody else about stuff like
bringing
that.
Up in team meetings too.
Yes, it's like, wait, what are you talking about? But to me, what the essence of Coach Graham is this: his coaching style, as far as teaching in the group, was to build a straw man and then accuse you of being the straw man. Basically, he'd be like, if you were at home and a burglar came in to steal your wife, you'd probably let him, wouldn't you? It's like, wait, come on, man.
He told us that story too.
Of course, it's his way to do it. He tells you stories about barking back at dogs and stuff, and it's to me he's got a lot of Zen Buddhism in him. He teaches in a way of using metaphors and stories and similes that most coaches don't understand, because most coaches are just busy doing with the techniques, like here's how we swing, or here's how we. And again, in the Zen Buddhist mindset is, well, it all depends, and because it always depends on situations. And I thought Coach Pierce this year at Texas did an outstanding job. Like, I didn't watch much Texas baseball this year, and I watched them in Omaha, and I thought they played baseball in a very good way. And I don't think they were nearly as talented as the teams that beat them. Mississippi State beat them, was much more talented. And I was very impressed. I like Coach Pierce personally. Not only was I happy for him, I was very impressed to watch the manner of baseball they were playing, including bunting. Because to win any sporting event, here's what you do. You put the most pressure on their worst athlete all the time, and that's all you do. So, like, when you see people bunting, they call it a sacrifice bunt. Well, that's not the right idea, because I've seen a lot of sacrifice bunts end up down the right field line. Because when you make the other team's pitcher make a play, guess what happens? That's a lot of pressure, triple. And all of a sudden, here's a triple. So it wasn't a sacrifice bunt. So you have to take that part of the equation out of your head. Like, we're giving away an out. No, what we're doing is making the other team make a play. And we're trying to make their worst player, their worst defender, make that play. And we'll see if he can or he can't. Because if he can't, we're just going to bunt him all day. Like, you'll see pitchers like I saw, John Lester can't throw to a base. Well, why wouldn't you just lead off 100 feet every time? And why wouldn't you bunt on him every single time? Just like, sorry, guys, I'm going to bunt on you 27 outs in a row until you throw the ball into the stands enough to where they have to pull you. We're like, I'm not going to let you off the hook like this. And that shows the difference between professional baseball and college baseball. College baseball is about winning. Professional baseball is about an exhibition. It's about to show throwing hard and hitting big home runs. It has nothing to do with winning. If it was about winning, people would play in a winning manner, and they don't.
So do you like the Tampa Bay Rays for that fact? I mean, they're pretty...
I like the idea that they'll try stuff, but I have some personal animosity towards them. I don't think I think they're doing better stuff than most of the teams are doing. I'll say that. But as far as their way of treating people and what I saw, I'm not a big fan of them.
Does that start with Stu Sternberg?
I don't know, because he's just an investor. He's not involved. I can't blame him. It starts with the people that they put in charge of the minor league system, mostly. Okay. There was a guy named Mitch Lukovich and Dick Bosman, these just relics of baseball that, they hired because they needed somebody. They didn't know who else to hire. They were already there. And they ran it terribly. And I think Tampa Bay cost themselves a World Series because, they signed Jeff in 2004, and legitimately they gave him a major league contract. I mean, Jeff Niemann's everything you would want in a pitcher: 6'9", 260, athletic, total command of 4 pitches, up to 96. And Jeff was in AAA throwing the baseball as well as he's ever done. I mean, if you really look at it, Jeff Neimann should have been able to walk off the mound in Omaha and walk onto a big league mound. There's nothing stopping that, you know.
Like Kumar.
It wouldn't have been an issue at all. I'm just going to walk right on. I'm just going to throw strikes and get everybody out. They let him sit and rot in AAA for 2 years for absolutely no reason. And doing that, I think, really hurt Jeff's career. I know. I mean, because when you're just wasting pitches in the minor leagues, it's like pitchers have a shelf life. No matter how well things go, you're going to get hurt, especially when you throw hard and you're a big guy. And to just sit there and just waste him when you're already paying him big league money, it blew my mind. They pulled up a guy named Andy Sonnenstein, who was total trash. And they pitched him instead. It's like, what? Nothing makes any sense when you look back. Like, why would y'all do that? You have a guy. It's not like Jeff had control or command problems. He had big time stuff, command of 4 pitches, and then when they finally did pitch him in the major leagues, I believe it was over a year, from like June one year to June the next year, he actually led the American League in wins.
That's just not at all surprising. It's just stories about guys like this all the time. The minor league mistreatment. I think Matt is a good guy to touch on this. He's actually running that Texas Pro Ball account.
I kind of agree. I think the minor leagues are pointless a little bit because they're making, I forget the number off the top of my head, like $15,000 a year, you know, less than a livable wage, less than minimum wage.
$1,200 a month. That's when I was there, was $800 a month for the A-ball guys.
Jesus.
And you have to pay for I have horror stories. I had guys that were living in apartments with no electricity because they couldn't afford to pay the power bill. So you're in Columbus, Georgia in the summer with no electricity, using candles for light. That's a true story. And eating all your meals at the field, peanut butter and jelly.
And then they say they want the players to develop help the major league team, but you're paying the clubhouse guy, however much to bring in 2 rotisserie chickens from the grocery store, and you're supposed to become an elite athlete off of that. I felt bad for a lot of my guys. I would take them out for dinner maybe once a week. I mean, specifically the poor guys. I'd take them out for dinner once a week or two, just because it's like, listen, I just feel bad about this. I don't know what else to say. It's like I can't imagine anybody being treated this way. It's never happened in college to me. Why they're doing to professional athletes, and it comes down to like human beings, specifically weak human beings, want to control people, and though it's the same idea that torturers enjoy torturing people. I mean, these people enjoy controlling people. It's what they get off on. And there's some teams that are opening their eyes and realizing this is bad. But like at the heart of it, the problem is this: the draft shouldn't exist. Drafts don't exist in other leagues. You look at the soccer around the world. Like if I'm 19-year-old Wade Townsend, I want to sign with the New York Yankees, I'm just allowed to do it. Well, of course. Name any other industry where you can decide, like, what if Apple and Microsoft had drafts for engineers? It's like, well, that would sound ridiculous, wouldn't it? Of course. But for football and baseball, why is this allowed? This is anti-American. It rewards losing because you get a higher draft pick. It controls labor to where it keeps cost downs for owners. That's the real thing. Is they want to keep cost downs for owners, because if Tampa Bay drafts me or Baltimore drafted me, I can't talk to anybody else. I have no other options. So they control you. It's a matter of controlling and keeping wages down. And eventually, I hope to be a part of a giant lawsuit that's like, listen, y'all owe me, $5 million because that was or more at my free market value at the time, which who knows what it was. I mean, we see guys like Matt White from 6 years before get declared a free agent and signed for $11 million with Tampa, and he was like number 9 pick. So that just shows you what the actual value of a first-round draft pick is on the open market. We saw that guy, I forgot his name, that went and signed in Japan for like $10 million. That's what I wish I'd have done. But that's what the actual value is. The draft is my opinion, is illegal. And I wish somebody would take this to court. And I wish we get rid of baseball's ridiculous antitrust exemption.
How long until sports in America work like they do in the European soccer leagues? To me, this is the real reason I want to be AD at Rice, is because the only way that we're going to have a relegation system is really in the NCAA. The owners in these other sports won't give it up. So what you can think about this, right? There's like 130 teams in D1 football. So in my opinion, you should have 13 leagues, right? The top 10 play each other the whole time. And then if you get last or second to last, now you go down to the second division. The top 2 from the second division go up. So it's a fluid exchange. There's always something interesting going on.
That's the way to really do it, having relegation. But the problem is the owners in America won't allow it to happen. So the only way that it can really happen is the NCAA. The NCAA has no idea what it has on its hands right now. People are so blind and so stupid. They don't realize the amount of money they're making right now pales in comparison to the amount of money they could be making 10 years from now. Rice University could be literally paid for just by its athletics department. Rather than Rice University paying for its athletics department, it could be bankrolled entirely by this. It's that big of an idea if it comes to fruition, the idea of a relegation system. And then also the idea of having, we'll get to this next idea in a bit, but the relegation system idea makes sports and makes the NCAA sports in America the most valuable commodity in the world. But they haven't thought about it yet. They're still stuck with their conference system because this is how we've done it. We've had bowl games and the conferences are get paid. So they're too stupid, and they haven't thought about the big picture yet to even realize what they have on their hands. It's like they're on a gold mine, and I'm trying to point out, it's like, guys, you can just like reach under the house and mine the gold. They're like, no, we're not doing that. It's like, okay, well, I don't know what to tell y'all.
Don't let the Power Five hear this. I feel like I could.
They would make more money too.
They would, but I feel like they don't want other people to make money. They don't want UTRGV to be great like Texas is. It's just a fact. But I feel like I can smell bullshit from a mile away, maybe even longer. I want to compete. I want to make something so great in my life, or just be a part of it that competes with the NCAA. That thing, total monopoly. I'm happy I got to play in it, but it's free labor. I still had to pay to go to school as an athlete. I'm still blessed to go there and that it was discounted because I was good at baseball in high school. But it's just, no athlete should have to pay. There's some of this shit that's happening. Like NC State, it's just ridiculous. It just doesn't make sense. All the facts are out there on the internet, in the world. If it weren't for Dave Portnoy, nobody would know about it. He's only got 2 million people that listen to him, but 2 million more than we'd have. My life goal is to somehow compete a challenger to the NCAA, something so enticing, something entertaining that eventually could compete with it. It's going to take a while, but
eventually what you're going to see mostly, because we have minor league ballparks all across the country that have become essentially useless. There's a lot of independent leagues with nice ballparks. Eventually, the independent leagues are going to have to band together and create a league similar to the English Football League that has the relegation system. We're going up and down, and it's like. And of course, Major League Baseball won't get involved with it. But if you create a system that's interesting and it can build itself for 10 years or so, you're going to see that doesn't have drafts, that has people. Because what you need, people are like, oh, we don't want the Yankees buying all the players. Like, well, why not? What's wrong with that? If you want to buy players and not use them, that's up to you guys. I don't care. Good luck. I mean, it's not going to hurt anybody. That's just a way of wasting money. But like, you look at the value of people, these transfer fees in soccer. It's like, this is what should be happening in baseball. In baseball, we have this, we're trading people. It's like, why can't you just sell people? Why, if it was up to me, it's like, okay, well, I want to go with, I'm going to sign with the Yankees and they'll pay me, X amount of money for 4 years. And then after that, I become a free agent, or they can sell me to somebody else. Like, that's how it should have been. But I didn't get the chance to do that because they created a monopoly system that screws the players up and down. Like, and it all starts with the draft, how it shouldn't exist. And it didn't used to exist. Most people don't know that. But in the 50s, people were getting over $100,000 to sign back then. Sandy Koufax is one of them. They made a rule where if you got over $100,000 to sign, then you had to stay in the big league roster for the whole year. That's why Sandy Koufax was on the roster when other people would have had him in the minor leagues getting his pitches in. Like, it's just total insanity.
Paying his dues.
Paying his dues.
Yeah.
Come on.
Imagine Shohei Ohtani when the Angels miss, and Mike Trout when the Angels miss the playoffs again. Well, maybe they'll make it this year. They're close. But imagine him going to the Yankees or him going to the Dodgers. Like, it'd be so much more fun for the sport. It's just.
Or maybe because when you let people make decisions for themselves, maybe Shohei Ohtani loves the Angels. Maybe doesn't want to go anywhere. That's possible. I mean, there's a lot of people that would, like, you mentioned Coach Graham as one. It's like, well, he could have taken more money to go other places, but he didn't because he was happy where he wants to be. There's a lot of people that are very successful that understand that happiness is more important than money. And yeah, money's part of it, obviously. But, let's say, you're getting paid a ton of money to be where someplace that you really enjoy, that's worth more than just, going somewhere else just for more money to a lot of very successful people. And the reason they're successful is because they think like that. That's the truth. It's not backwards.
I can't think of anyone happier than Anthony Rendon.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know him very well. I maybe met him twice. I know Coach Graham speaks extremely highly of him. When I watch him play baseball, I see a perfect baseball player. personally, I look at him right now, and I think he needs to put on 20 pounds of muscle. I don't think he's big enough. I think he's hitting balls to the warning track that need to be going out, and they're not. And so I think he needs to go on a big time strength training program.
Well,
Definitely,
just
but-
wait till the MLB changes the balls again. They'll get out.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But either way, they'll go out even farther.
Away from baseball, because there's more to life than baseball, and obviously a lot more to you than your baseball career. How did you get started in poker? I assume you played as an amateur before you went and played professionally, but how did that get started for you?
Well, this idea between amateur and professional, there's really no line to be drawn. You don't get like declared to professional. Being professional basically means you living off the poker money you make. I started playing online in like 2005, maybe, right when I was really starting. And when I got hurt with Tampa specifically, I had so much time in my hands, like again, like you have to be at the field at 7 a.m. for rehab. Why, So I show up exhausted, doing my rehab. I'm out of there by 11, and now I have to kill 12 hours of the day. And so I started playing online a lot. And actually, one guy that was doing a lot with me was, and it shows you why he's so successful. Rocco Baldelli is actually a really good poker player.
Really?
Also. Yeah, he used to play in my account on Party Poker. Yeah, and we used to just trade tournaments back and forth. He knew what he was doing. Rocco's a very smart person. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but I'm very happy for his success. I think he deserves it. I think he's actually very intelligent. And so I started playing a lot because I had arm injuries, and then I was doing well. I wasn't doing well to start. Then I read a book, and I was like, okay, I'm actually going to take this seriously and try to actually win. And that was, once I started doing that, I started winning. Which most people play poker for fun. They're not playing to actually win. They're just playing to fit in, to have something to do, and that's fine. I support that. If you have too much money and you want to go just hang out somewhere and gamble, basically, that's better than playing blackjack. But most people aren't trying to win. So once I decided I was going to try to actually win, I started being good at it. And then I was in Tampa for doing my rehab, and I saw that I was playing on a couple sites. I saw PokerStars was a site, and they had this tournament in the Bahamas, and I was like, well, I'm going to try to qualify for that, right? Foolishly. And so I deposit like $500, and like I play a $3 rebuy tournament first Saturday. I win that one to get like their $600 tournament. And I'm sitting there and I win it the first chance I get, right? And so I know I'm going to the Bahamas to play this tournament in like 4 months, which is the greatest thing ever. I couldn't believe I was doing it. And to me, it's still like one of the coolest things you can do. Back in the day, they used to have, like, I traveled the world doing this. I would win a tournament online to a tournament in New Zealand or Colombia or the Czech Republic or London, all these places, or the Bahamas, obviously. And then I would use that, and the tournament buy-in would be paid for. They give you airfare and they give you a nice hotel. They treat really well, and because this was like a promotion thing for them too. And so I traveled to many, many, many countries, getting to do that. And that was what became, once I started tasting once I started realizing there was a world outside of the U.S. Really, there was a world outside of baseball. I just became more interested in traveling around and doing that than I did with baseball. Baseball became a drag, a huge hindrance. And I didn't enjoy going to the field and being told what to do for 12 hours a day. Like, what's more fun? Going to a field and being told to stand there and flush my brain down the toilet for 12 hours a day and just bore myself out of my mind, or go gamble, in Europe, or play poker in Europe. So, you get to go around with beautiful European models and all these things. Like, what would be more fun, And so I was like, I think I know what's more fun. And after a while, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep doing this. And that's kind of what I've been doing. I haven't traveled nearly as much in the last 5 years. I just kind of enjoying being on my farm here. And, but yeah, that's what it really, really kind of started once I realized you could win money online and then also, go to these cool trips. And so that's what I did.
Are you still in Texas?
Yeah, I'm just in Bastrop County in God's country. It's fantastic out here.
Oh, yeah. There's a quote I found online from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And I wonder if this at all relates to your baseball skill. I know baseball and poker definitely have some similar strategy. You talked about this. I've read into it. But the bandana across his forehead, talking about you, adds an extra layer, giving unfamiliar foes the impression that Townsend might be pretty good with the bow staff too.
Well, like that's a good quote. But what mostly I like to not fit into society. And like I found out that when I still have a mohawk, I got a mohawk going right now, but
Let's go.
I haven't like cut it a little bit. But I'm a big fan of when you walk around in a way that's different in that that you're truly yourself, it allows other people, it gives them courage to do it as well, right? And like one of my big things on a spiritual level, I guess, one of the big reasons I feel like I'm on earth is to kind of free people from these insane things they do, wasting their life at a 9 to 5 when they don't have to. I mean, I'll never judge somebody for providing for their family. They'll never be like, oh, don't do this or don't do that. There's a lot of people that choose to live this 9 to 5 life that are missing out on what, in my opinion, is the point of life and the beauty of life. Rather than watching a nature documentary online, which I still do all the time. Why not go somewhere you've never been and check it out? Maybe rather than seeing that leopard on camera, you can just go see him in person.
Add a little fear in there too. I mean, not that fear exists in your soul, but it's just the adventure.
Fear always exists. I mean, fear. Here's the thing: most people they're scared of. They're scared of being scared. You see, that's what you can't be doing. You can't be scared of being scared. It's okay to be like, hey, listen, I'm scared shitless right now. That's fine. But you see people, I'm not scared at all. And it's like, well, that's untrue. Like, I mean, if you're not putting yourself out there, I remember when I pitched against Texas in Omaha, I had talked so much shit leading up to that game, and they had scored 2 in the first inning, and they had the bases loaded. And I take a step off the mound, and I literally remember thinking to myself, man, I've talked too much shit to allow this to happen. I can't allow this to happen to me, And so I dug down deep into places that most people don't know exist. And I got out of those situations. We ended up beating 12-2. But it was that itself. I put myself out there in a position where I could have failed miserably and embarrassingly. And people look at my professional career, don't really understand the situation behind it. And they assume that I failed, miserably. And I guess on some levels I did. But I think, Chris Colcourse is.
Yeah, I know Chris. I run on him at Minute Maid a few times a year.
To me, Chris Colcourse and myself were the 2 best competitors on that team. It was a team full of great competitors. I mean, we both had huge egos, and we both tried to win to protect those egos, which is the right way to do it. And you look at what happened to him in Pro Bowl. Also, there was one day he was moving up the ladder, and he was just like, I'm done here. I don't want to do this anymore. And it's like I felt the same way. And I haven't really talked to him about it, but like I believe if you sat him down, he'd point out the fact that like. What he was good at and what I was good at is competing and winning baseball games. That's what we'd always done. And so when you put us in an environment, it's like taking a tiger and putting him in a cage. It's like, well, I mean, I'm just going to go to sleep after this. This is boring to me. I'm not going to do your little tricks. I'm not going to show up and do, and have the rest of my teammates just screw around all the time and just make errors. Nobody cares. It has nothing to do with winning. This isn't what I got into it for. This isn't fun for me. And I think they hit a similar situation to me. It was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'll go do something else.
Grit man.
Yeah, he's great. To me, I think he'd be a great coach also. You look at what he did on offensive. I call him an offensive wizard. His on-base percentage was almost 500. Like if you put a shift on him, he would hit 1,000 or, it wouldn't be a problem because you'd see him take balls out of the catcher's mitt and just slap them foul. And then work himself for a walk or get hit with a pitch or whatever he needed to do. And it became his identity. And, and he did it to a level that I've never seen anybody get approach even.
I have his stats right here. And his on-base percentages were 415, 478, and 489. Holy.
489 is pretty strong, man.
That's in a 46-14 season, too. I mean, the numbers don't lie.
Ridiculous.
No. And people think it was because he tried to do that. That was what he was trying to do. Most people up there just swinging bats. Like, I don't think the average viewer understands that as a hitter, you have the power to hit the ball where you want to. It's not like, oh, you just swing and you always hit the ball to second base. Like, listen, if they put all their people on the right side of the infield, just hit it to the left side of the infield. This isn't rocket science. This is something any 8-year-old would understand. But yet in the major leagues, it completely eludes them. And the reason why is because they're not there to win. They're there to get paid, and you get paid for home runs. And so you see Joey Gallo and these idiots just continue to roll over and hit balls right into the shift and end up hitting 170 again. Doesn't help you win at all, but nobody will tell them, hey, we're not doing this anymore. Now, what they need is a general manager and a manager saying, listen, this is what we're actually going to do. We're going to try to win baseball games. It would shock people. You see teams start bunting, and slapping the ball around. Because when you do that, and when you take a lot, make the other team throw strikes, what the other pitcher starts to do is just to try to throw a strike down the middle. Now, if you think that I'm taking, and all of a sudden we take the take sign off, and you throw a fastball in the middle, now it's time to crush the ball. It's not like you're still not trying to hit home runs and drive the ball. You just do it selectively. And teams refuse to use tactics at all. Analytics tells you what happened. Tactics tell you what's going to happen. And we have a bunch of people involved that don't understand the difference in the two. And because they heard it work with Billy Beane, he used the word analytics, everybody becomes obsessed with analytics, not even know what the word means. It's like, well, if I see you putting all these guys over here, I can just hit the ball over there. And all of a sudden, my analytics will say, I hit 1,000, and I hit the ball over there every time. But they don't do it because they're not actually seriously trying to win.
So do you think that'll ever change? Because
yes,
you think it will?
Somebody will come in and will kick everybody's asses doing it. Like the mid-'90s Yankees played a similar style to that, where if you were a good starting pitcher, you know what they're going to do? They're going to foul off 80 pitches in a row to get you out of there by the fourth inning, get to your weak bullpen, and then we're going to crush them. It was a team effort, and and they won because of that. And eventually there's going to be an owner or a general manager or a manager that says, we're going to do it this way. And this entire team will come to life when that happens, because athletes, when they know you're really truly trying to win, they respond in magnificent fashion. They blossom in ways you didn't even realize. And so eventually, yes, that will happen. Whoever does it first will win spectacularly for almost no money. And I'll give you a couple secrets. Here's how you win in the major leagues. You invest in your bullpen. Number one, you put most of your money in your bullpen. You do not overpay. You do not pay for mediocrity under any circumstance with starting pitching. If you have a stud starting pitcher, it's okay to pay them. But we're certainly not going to have them on a pitch count. And that's absurd. Like, the reason to have pitch counts in youth baseball is so you can get to the point where maybe you have a career. Once you're in the major leagues, there's nothing else to wait for, guys. We're in the major leagues. It's time to win now. There's nothing else after this. There's not like a major leagues. This is crazy. And so having a 90, these pitch counts they have, they're actually pseudoscience. They're not actually science-based. This is pseudoscience. Now, if you're going to look at when and how pitchers get hurt, which I know specifically, you get hurt by pitching when you're not in shape to pitch, number one, or when you're already hurt. Like if you're hurt, if you have a hurt knee, that's when you hurt your elbow, stuff like that. Now, that's when you should watch pitchers, but you shouldn't be like, oh, he's thrown this many pitches, because you look at Nolan Ryan, you look at all these pitchers for the rest of the first 130 years of baseball that threw, every 4 games or every 3 games had no arm problems, who didn't even know what training was, Nowadays, we're at the absolute cutting edge of training and being in shape to pitch and knowing what works to keep yourself strong and everything. And yet we're throwing the fewest amount of pitches we're ever thrown. This makes no sense. Like, if you have a guy you're paying $30 million for, listen, buddy, go up there and pitch a bunch. That's the point of this. I spent that money to use you. That was it. I don't care about next year. That's not my point. That's your problem, not mine. You signed the contract.
These guys threw 230 pitches every 4 days, not just every once in a while.
Yeah, that actually gets you in shape to do it. You see what I'm saying? Like, the more you do it, the more you can do it. And now if you're hurt, take the time off, get yourself back ready. But this idea of wasting pitches in minor leagues, which shouldn't happen. Also, on offense, what you should be using is short players. And people are like, oh, what are you talking about using short players? Like, if you're playing basketball, the basketball hoop's always 10 feet. It's always 90 feet to first base. The strike zone, what's the strike zone?
Always from the letters to your knees.
Well, yeah, but doesn't that matter how tall you are?
Yep.
So you want short players, obviously. Kyle Schwarber, Jose Altuve, they're not good despite being short. They're good kind of because they're short. It makes the pitcher have to throw into a very small area. And when you have to do that, you're behind the count more than you're in position to hit the ball. So if you're a GM and you want to put together a real team, you get a bunch of position players that are all 5'8", make their pitcher have to throw to a tiny spot over and over again. They'll never be able to do it. You're going to win almost every game for no money. But nobody wants to talk about it. They just want to go up there and do what the agents tell them to do. Sign this guy for $70 million. I mean, Bryce Harper, he's kind of pointless. Like, because what happens when you get a lot of these hitters like Bryce Harper, as soon as they face good pitching, they're neutralized. Well, guess what you're going to face in the World Series? Good pitching, which is why the Yankees used to do well, which is why Jose Altuve does well. I think he's a great hitter. Yes, I know they call it cheating. I don't call sign stealing cheating. I think it's part of the game.
Smart.
But I think he's a great hitter. Hand-eye is fantastic. To me, he'd be the first guy to build my team around.
Be a damn good one too. Keep Bregman in there too.
Absolutely. And Carlos Correa by himself, like I think Carlos Correa is one of the most talented, if not the most talented player I've ever seen. If you look at his bat speed and his arm strength and his abilities, they're as good as they could possibly be. It's off the charts. I don't think people even realize how good he is still.
And he's clutch. He can't even factor in the clutch factor.
Yeah, and he's Puerto Rican, and like I know, Puerto Rico plays a good, like different countries play different style of baseballs and football, whatever you want to call it. You know, if you talk about Brazilian versus a German, they're going to play different styles of soccer. Well, in Puerto Rico, they teach a style of baseball that's very similar to Cuba. Puerto Rico and Cuba are kind of cousins, right? They play a serious winning strain of baseball over there, and they obviously Jose Cruz and the whole Cruz family, Puerto Rican. I mean, of course, they become this part of their DNA. So it's part of their culture. They play the baseball this way. Same as Japan. Japan plays a great way of baseball. They play an extreme winning way of baseball. And there's other cultures and other countries that don't. I mean, we're one of them now. We didn't used to, but we used to play good baseball here, but now we
don't. Another facet of your life that I'm kind of interested in is when I was doing a little bit of research, I've stumbled upon one of your podcast episodes where you stated, you know, you have some sort of interest in running for Congress. Is that still true?
Yes. I mean, but here's the problem with that. Until people are ready, and I think we're at that time right now, until people are ready, I think people are ready for just the unadulterated truth, you know, because most people, here's the problem with most coaches and politicians, half of them don't know the truth. So you can't accuse them of lying, actually. It's like, they don't even know, they don't know, they haven't done the time to, you know, like you take somebody that you can get a degree in Mexican studies or something, right? Or you could be like me. I lived in Mexico for 3 years. Who do you think's gonna understand Mexico better? Guess what? It's me, because I was there. I understand it up and down. I know how it works. I'm very welcome there. They're great culture, great people, and I understand the dynamics between the two countries better than they could ever do it from, you know, being in a think tank. And I think people are ready for that. It's just a matter of, like, I get accused of a lot of things just because I say things that other people haven't thought about. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, the people that come to me mostly and want to talk to me about this privately, there's a lot of people that you wouldn't guess that do listen to me. They don't necessarily reach out, but I know they're listening. I know they're watching my Facebook stuff. These are very influential people. And the thing is, like, all it tells me is like, okay, these people probably agree with me, but they know they can't come out and, you know, be like, hey, let's listen to this guy, because they'll be accused of all the things I'm accused of. And it's not worth it to them to lose their social standing in this little, you know, Rice kind of Roman Senate thing going on, which is fine. I'm one of those people that comes into these. I'm like a Da Vinci in that sense. I'm not one of the people. I'm not the elite, right? But I was extremely talented, and I came in and I understand their world. I can fit into their world. I know how to put a suit on if I want to, or whatever. They don't expect me to. I know how to come in and fit into, you know, a cocktail party, but I can also go back to the trailer park and fit in right there too. And they can't do that, right? And so I've actually become this conduit between, like, the elite and the rednecks, which I morally identify. And so I think that, you know, that is going to be the future of politics. It's just a matter of, you know, getting the eyes and getting the paperwork and the I mean, it's not about money. It's about attention. If you can get enough people to pay attention to you, then you can probably gain traction. It's just it's difficult, and I haven't really attacked it like I should. I mean, I am very interested, though. Yes.
Well, from this short hour that we've talked together, I think you have my vote. I cannot stand the career politicians that are just out of touch with, you know, actual people. So if you want to go, one vote.
On both sides, they are. I mean, yeah. I'm not that guy that's like, oh, you're good or you're evil. It's like, listen, you know, let's. There's good people on both sides. There's evil people on both sides. I try to call that out, equally. And that's to me, that's the only way to go about it. You can't be part of this partisan nonsense. It just doesn't need to exist anymore. The only partisan I am is I'm pro Rice. Like, you know, I want Rice University to succeed.
I think things are soon to change, especially inside the hedges.
I think people are caught on. Like, a lot of people don't want to talk about it. Yeah, you know, I think he's kind of right. You know, and of course they'll never apologize to me, which I don't expect them to. But I think you see LeBron randomly leaving all of a sudden. You know, it's like, well, that's odd. You know, somebody must be paying attention to something I've been saying. It must be catching some sort of fire.
I mean, he was doing great. And I do have a few things to say to you too, or at least ask you. On behalf of, people are listening to you, they see what you say, they'll never reach out. That's where I'm at with Kendall Rogers right now. He likes to read my tweets and repost them as his own. What bad would a retweet be to a young kid trying to grow? We don't want anything but greatness to be spread. I feel like we put a lot of time and quality effort into this project we're on, and I'm not quite sure what kind of man that is. It's almost like a politician for college baseball. And now I get it. I support what he does. He made some of my teammates stand out more. I don't want bad for him at all. Just come on, man. I'm not the only one you're doing this to. Feel what you're saying there. He's not gonna come back and say sorry. He's gonna say DM.
It's just like a comedian stealing jokes, Yeah. It's like, if you have, it's one thing to be like, okay, this person is my competition. I'm not gonna share stuff that they sent. It's another thing to be like, okay, I'm gonna take this person's news story and package it as my own. That's kind of in my opinion, it's kind of bullshit. And I don't know the dynamics behind this, but like, people are very scared of losing, what they have. Like, they see everything as a threat. It's a very fear-based mindset.
Paranoia.
But if you were looking at it, it's paranoia on some levels. But if you looked at it correctly, it's like growing the game of college baseball. And again, I think it's at its infancy because people love baseball, but they hate Major League Baseball because it's boring. It's endlessly boring. They made it corporate. It's awful. It's just like, so now people starting to catch on that college baseball exists, Like, well, there's people out here playing real baseball. They're actually really good at it, and they're trying to win with emotion and passion. And some stuff I want to watch, So this game could explode, like, and so I think him looking at it that way. I can't speak for him, obviously, but I think if he would realize that, a rising tide here is gonna raise all ships. Like, everybody's gonna get, you're gonna get more views. He'll get more views. You never know. Maybe in 5 years, y'all could merge. It could be all sorts of different things. You don't know what's gonna happen 5 years from now. But there's no reason to be against other people trying to do what you're doing, unless the only time I'm for that is like the pitcher hitter situation. For me to lose, he has to win. For me to win, he has to lose. And it's like, listen, it's going to have to be one of us. I know which one I'm picking,
Myself. Bet on yourself.
Yeah, of course. In this situation, it feels like everybody can win.
I think we've talked for a good while. We got a few final questions.
Yeah.
We're definitely so happy to have you on. You are by far the most interesting man in Texas. I'm going to stick with
People
that
will catch
one.
on soon. Don't worry.
Yeah. Mr. Townsend, we're happy to have you. And here's the final two questions. Who would you like to see on this podcast in the near future if you see this going somewhere? And finally, how could we get Wayne Graham on here?
Well, probably the one person I would say I would probably, if I were you, I'd probably shoot for Ben Mintz.
Okay.
Part of the Barstool crew. I'm one of my good friends, but one thing I've just been impressed with is just how much attention he's been able to get to college baseball over the last 3 months. And obviously Barstool is, to me, it's a well done. I truly respect their founder, Dave Warner. I think he's a fantastic guy. I'm a big fan of him. Barstool kind of reminds me of the UFC. Like, the UFC succeeds because of Dana White. There's no other reason. There's other MMA promotions. They're not the UFC because they don't have Dana White. Without Dave, Barstool is just another thing, But he's the one that's really created the ethos, created the I don't care what your opinion of me and us. We're gonna do what we're gonna do, and that's what people are just craving at this point. And, like, we're in such a post-truth era where you're not allowed to say anything. That anybody that comes out and speaks the actual truth and doesn't care about the repercussions just gains so much support. And Dave has done that. And and so I would probably try to get Ben on if I was you.
Okay.
But as far as getting Wayne Graham, I've never met somebody that wants to talk more than I do, right? And so me and his conversations, like, we used to talk, 2-3 hours a day. All the time, and we rarely get into baseball. Like, baseball was kind of an afterthought. We talk about history and aliens and religion, anything you want to get into. We would talk about everything. It was like, we were doing the Joe Rogan podcast, just me and him, basically by ourselves for years, right? He's very, very well read and very smart. And so I think if he was in a position where he felt comfortable, knowing what a podcast was, realizing how to set it up, I think he'd be more than willing to talk, because he's not one of those guys that's like, oh, I don't want to share my information to other people. They might get it and be better than me. He's not that guy at all. He wants, like, any true true legendary person wants the next person to be better than them. He's John the Baptist, in my opinion.
That's what he was.
Absolutely. He wants everybody coming after him to somehow be better than he was. Then to me, that's the true human, real ethos that goes between generations, goes down on the eons. There's always been people like that, continuing to push, wisdom and thought and intelligence. And he's the latest in the line of a lot of great, smart men that come before him. And he knows that. And that's why he wants that line to continue. I think he'd be more than happy talking about anything.
Definitely. And it's not like I don't know him. So, I mean, it'd be awesome to have him on. It was incredibly amazing having you on today, Wade. I want to hear some of these Wade and Wayne conversations. I think that'd be something special. That's all we got today. We're extremely grateful to have you on. Thanks for being our first guest.
Thank you so much. If you want to shout out your podcast, your socials.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess my podcast is called The Wade Townsend Show. It's on all major podcast forums currently. Once it gets popular, it'll get removed. Don't worry. That's I know I have a ceiling as far as podcasting, unless I get it so big that they can't get rid of me. But, yeah, basically, or like Joe Rogan, I refuse to be one of the people that just comes out and says the same. Because here's the problem: most podcasts have nothing to talk about, and so they just talk about the same stuff over and over again. It's just a way of regurgitating somebody's other information over and over again. So it's almost nothing new to say, and I refuse to do that. And so I really get in depth onto any topic I find interesting. It could be it could be history, it could be modern events. I go with a lot of what's happening in the world, showing my take on it, which is drastically different than most people's take. Because again, I've been to these countries, I know how they work, I know what's actually happening there. Because I have friends all over the world, Because when you walk around just being yourself, you end up attracting other people that think the same way. And I've got friends from Iran and Pakistan and Australia and all over Europe and South America, and so I actually know what's going on down there. Because if I don't, I just ask them; they tell me. And so I've actually got a huge worldwide network of people I trust that are very smart. And, I talk about things that are interesting to me.
Well, I love listening. I'm going to continue listening. And if you're hearing this, go listen to the Wade Townsend Show. It certainly will make the hairs on your neck stand up. I can promise you that. Thank you again, Wade. It's super exciting to have you. Look forward to talking with you in the future and interacting over Twitter, Facebook, whatever.
No problem, guys. Anytime.
Thanks for coming on, Wade. It was incredible having Wade Townsend on the podcast today. Wade is truly the most interesting man in Texas. For our first podcast, we really can't thank him enough for coming on, taking the risk. We're excited to see where things go. Wade's been a mentor to me for a little while, and bringing him on was truly, truly a pleasure.
Yeah, once again, we want to thank Wade for coming on the show. Everybody go follow him at Wade Townsend Man on Twitter and listen to his podcast on pretty much all the podcast apps, The Wade Townsend Show. And then once again, you can follow me. I cover Texas Pro Baseball at Texas Pro BSB on Twitter.
Feel free to drop Texas College Baseball at Texas College BSB a follow. We cover college guys. We're always looking to share the love for baseball in Texas. Definitely have some exciting things brewing. We'll have a YouTube up and running soon. And lastly, we have a very, very exciting guest coming on the next episode. Thanks for listening.